Got Walter Thorn joining us from ChargerHelp to talk about ChargerHelp's annual reliability report and the state of the EV driver and charging experience.
Our first ever, but will be annual reliability report. So who is ChargerHelp? We are a company that is kind of pioneering and is exclusively dedicated to EV charging operations and maintenance. So we're really focused on how do we make sure that this infrastructure that we're deploying to charge vehicles is working the way that it needs to, so that ultimately drivers have good charging experiences and can have kind of as seamless of a fueling experience with EVs as they have with traditional internal combustion engines. In the last 3 years, we have doubled the number of public EV charging ports. And as of April of this year, that was over 175,000 ports nationwide. But what we know is that the driver experience, charging on all of these plugs that we have deployed has not kept up with the deployment itself. And you see that in the news articles, and if you are an EV driver and you charge on public infrastructure, that the experience and in particular the reliability of that experience is not where it needs to be. So we asked the question, what does true uptime look like in the United States today? Actual assessment campaign where we sent technicians out into the field. We actually tested over 1,200 chargers, to see what the real driver experience there looked like. And so we've published this in a report. I'm going to go through some of the findings here today. Encourage you, if you're interested, to go to chargerhelp.com and download the full report there. But a couple of the things that we explore is, really what the relationship between, what the charger says about itself, or what the charging network or charge point operator CPO says about the charger versus what we found to be kind of the true experience. In terms of how we define true uptime, we're really looking at what the driver's on the ground experience is, right? So are they actually able to conduct successfully a charging session? Are they able to fuel their vehicle? And this in some cases can be in contrast to what a station or a network reports about that charger, either via OCPP, or via the charging app, or an API. There was a relatively consistent discrepancy between actual versus expected station status and charging success. What are our hypotheses on why that might be? And actually what we found to be kind of the most explanatory factor in the reliability by geography was actually the age of the equipment. So, this chart shows kind of the percentage of ports that are down based on the quarter in which they were installed. And, if you kind of look, there's a little bit of a trend here where the older the equipment is, right? So looking at the far left side, equipment that was installed in, say 2009 or 2010. So at this point is, over a decade old, had a higher percentage that were down, or a lower reliability than obviously equipment that was much newer. The different types of things that we saw actually physically failing on the chargers themselves. So we had, cabinet damage is actually the enclosure of the charger. Obviously the things here that where we saw the highest rate of damage were the screen itself, the retractor that actually holds the cable in place when it's not being used, which is very important to kind of keeping that cable safe and keeping it off the ground where somebody might run over it while they're parking. So we saw high rates of retractor damage. Obviously the cable itself and the connector were damaged in some cases, and then a lot of issues with the payment systems and how do we actually transact and authenticate a charge. The electrical issues are a very small portion of the actual issues that are preventing these chargers from working. So we do see instances where there's a breaker issue or something at the panel or something electrical kind of upstream of the charger, but very few instances of that being the kind of the driving cause. And that presents kind of an issue of just data accuracy and how do we address and improve issues when we don't have data that's accurate. So how do we start improving kind of what we can see remotely? Ultimately, there's not one single thing that we could point to coming out of this study to say, this is what's causing the reliability problem. And so, we really need to kind of understand the ground truth so that we can, start to look at system level responses to improving uptime. In terms of what's publicly shared and what our partners at Parent are looking at, there's limits to what data is actually available, and those data limitations can limit kind of the ability to interpret or determine the true reliability of the equipment. Just having an uptime number has left a fair amount to interpretation. The other thing is really thinking about how do we fund operations and maintenance. So NEVI and as part of NEVI, they're providing grants to actually repair or replace non-operational chargers. So there's work that's happening at the joint office level, and ChargerHelp is participating in that around kind of minimum standards for reliability reporting as part of kind of how the charger software is implemented. We have our kind of comprehensive managed service product that supports chargers after post install. Another piece of this is just like ongoing support both for end customers, so 24/7 customer service with agents on the line that actually can troubleshoot things remotely and do more than just taking down and recording a ticket, as well as escalate that to a technician dispatch. Workforce development effort that we're leading is not just the foundational skills, but also how do we make sure that there is adequate training offered by the manufacturers so that these technicians can receive not just the foundations, but the specific equipment, equipment specific training that's needed for them to be able to service those chargers. And so